The Dan Batard Show has become one of the most distinctive and influential programs in modern sports media. What began as a relatively traditional sports radio program has evolved into a mixture of humor, cultural commentary, emotional moments, and complete unpredictability. The show's evolution, its willingness to challenge norms, and its refusal to take sports too seriously have helped it build an unusually loyal fan base. The audience doesn't simply listen to the show, they feel like a part of its ongoing universe. The personality of Dan Batard himself is the foundation of everything. As the son of Cuban immigrants, Dan grew up in a household filled with passion, storytelling, and cultural richness. His journalism career taught him to question authority, challenge cliches, and always look for the deeper human angle. When he brought those instincts into sports radio, the results became something no one had heard before. Instead of treating sports headlines as sacred or dramatic, he treated them as human stories and sometimes as complete absurdities. This made the show feel different from the traditional, aggressive, debate-driven style that dominated sports talk at the time. A crucial element of the show's success is its emphasis on vulnerability and honesty. Dan is not afraid to admit mistakes, explore emotional topics, or criticize the sports world's hypocrisy. He often brings discussions back to issues that matter to him: identity, fairness, compassion, and the way we treat others. These moments of reflection exist right alongside comedic nonsense, creating a unique blend that feels both chaotic and meaningful. But Dan alone is not what makes the show work. The supporting cast, especially Stugatz, the longtime co-host, adds a completely different energy. Stugatz represents the fan who wants hot takes, quick reactions, shortcuts, and attention. His exaggerated flaws are part of the show's charm. He mispronounces names, forgets statistics, contradicts himself constantly, and finds ways to turn even simple moments into comedic gold. His dynamic with Dan feels like two opposites who somehow make perfect sense together. Dan provides the depth, and Stugatz provides the absurdity. Together, they create a rhythm that no other show can replicate. The rest of the crew adds more layers to the program's personality. Each member contributes their own quirks, opinions, and comedic instincts. The crew does not behave like traditional radio producers who stay behind the scenes. Instead, they are characters within the show's universe. Their laughter, disagreements, and unpredictable side conversations often create the funniest moments. The show thrives on authenticity. If something goes wrong technically, it becomes part of the comedy. If someone breaks into laughter, it becomes a highlight instead of a mistake. That unfiltered atmosphere gives the audience a sense of intimacy, as if they're sitting in the room with the crew rather than listening from afar. One of the show's most defining features is its refusal to embrace traditional sports media seriousness. While many sports programs focus on statistics, predictions, and arguments, the Dan Batard Show questions why sports need to be so intense in the first place. The show pokes fun at cliché storylines and manufactured controversies. It mocks the idea that analysts should always have definitive answers. Instead, it embraces the chaos and randomness of sports. This approach allows the show to feel refreshing in a landscape crowded with repetitive debate topics. Another unique aspect is the way the show blends comedy with social awareness. Dan frequently brings attention to issues such as racism, inequality, and the public treatment of athletes. He challenges his audience to think beyond the scoreboard. Sometimes the discussions become uncomfortable, but they are always honest. This combination of humor and seriousness reflects the show's core philosophy. Life is messy, complicated, funny, painful, and unpredictable, and sports are just one part of that bigger picture. The show's expansion into the digital space opened new opportunities for creativity. When the program left ESPN and transitioned to a fully independent model, many questioned whether it would survive. Instead, the opposite happened. Free from corporate restrictions, the show found new freedom. The crew introduced fresh content formats, extended conversations, and unusual creative segments. They experimented with long-form storytelling, documentary-style features, and comedic bits that would never fit into traditional radio schedules. This period solidified the show's identity as a cultural institution rather than just a sports program. The fan community is another essential piece of a show's story. The audience does not simply consume the content. They interact with it, reshape it, and become part of the ongoing narrative. Fans share inside jokes, remix clips, create memes, and form friendships through the show's universe. The bond between the crew and the audience feels unusually personal. Listeners often describe the show as an escape, a comfort, or a daily habit they rely on. This emotional connection helps explain why the show has remained relevant for so long. Guest appearances also play a major role. The show brings in athletes, comedians, analysts, actors, and journalists who feel comfortable being themselves rather than performing a media persona. Many guests appreciate the show's relaxed environment. They can joke, argue, tell stories, or reveal personal details without the pressure of standard interviews. Some guests become recurring characters, adding new patterns to the show's comedic rhythm. This ability to make even serious experts feel loose and playful demonstrates the talent of the crew in building a safe, entertaining space. The show's storytelling segments highlight some of its most memorable moments. The crew often revisits personal stories from their lives, embarrassing mistakes, emotional struggles, hilarious misunderstandings, or meaningful experiences. Dan frequently reflects on family, especially his relationship with his father. Audiences still remember the heartfelt moments involving Dan's dad, who became a beloved figure on the show. Those stories illustrated the deeper emotional connection behind the comedy. They reminded listeners that behind all the jokes, these were real people sharing themselves honestly. Another defining characteristic is the show's unpredictable structure. Some episodes follow no logical pattern. A serious conversation might suddenly transform into a ridiculous bit. A funny moment might unexpectedly shift into a heartfelt discussion. The crew frequently goes off topic, gets distracted, argues about nonsense, or derails planned segments. But this lack of structure is part of the show's appeal. It feels natural and unscripted, like a real conversation between friends rather than a produced broadcast. The show's influence on sports media is undeniable. Many fans and critics credit it with reshaping the landscape of sports entertainment. It proved that audiences are not limited to traditional analysis and aggressive debates. People crave authenticity, humor, and emotional depth. The show helped inspire other programs to be more relaxed, more vulnerable, and more willing to embrace chaos. The crew demonstrated that sports media could be creative and artistic rather than formulaic. The show has also sparked conversations about the role of media companies. When the show chose independence, it showcased the growing power of creators to control their own content. Instead of relying on network decisions, the crew built their own ecosystem. This shift reflected a larger trend in digital media and influenced other personalities to consider independent paths. The show became an example of what is possible when creators trust their vision. The purpose of the show has always extended beyond sports entertainment. It aims to make people feel something: laughter, nostalgia, empathy, discomfort, or joy. It challenges the idea that sports are the center of the universe, while also celebrating the passion that fans bring to them. It acknowledges that athletes are complex human beings rather than statistics. It embraces the idea that imperfections are what make life interesting. The show is also about community. For many listeners, it becomes a daily companion. They take it on commutes, work shifts, workouts, and quiet moments at home. The voices of the crew become familiar, comforting, and energizing. The jokes become part of daily speech. The running gags evolve over years. In this way, the show creates a sense of belonging, a shared world with its own culture, language, and identity. The legacy of the Dan Le Batard show lies in its ability to remain authentic while constantly evolving. As sports media grows more crowded and competitive, the show continues to stand out for its originality. It remains unpredictable, funny, emotional, thoughtful, and defiantly different. It doesn't follow trends. It creates them. It doesn't chase attention. It earns loyalty. Whether discussing a major sporting event or debating the silliest possible topic, the show treats every moment with the same blend of humor and sincerity. Ultimately, the show is about people. It's about how they argue, laugh, love, fail, and grow. It's about the messy reality of life and the absurdity of taking things too seriously. Sports may be the backdrop, but human nature is the real subject. The Dan Le Batard show continues to resonate because it captures that complexity while making people smile. It invites listeners to step into a world where they can think deeply, laugh loudly, and feel connected. And in a world that often feels heavy, that combination remains incredibly powerful.